Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. I have 17 glitch in the matrix and supernatural stories for you today. How do demons, prisoners of war, and a beautiful girl relate? Let's find out. Case file number 2113, written by That Chris Fella, A Dream of War, Lore, and Maddie's Tale. I used to have these very vivid dreams that were all part of an overall story. They took place in an alternate universe with magic and demons and crap. Myself and some friends, these people weren't real mind you, were freedom fighters in the war. The dreams were never in order, and I wrote them down after waking up, figuring out where they placed on the timeline by taking note of particular details. For instance, in some of the dreams, I was always alone and was incredibly powerful. In others, I was pretty much just an average kid and had all those friends around me as we snuck around trying to rescue prisoners of war. One night, I had a particularly dark dream where one of my friends, his name was Luke, was sitting on a rooftop threatening to jump. I went up there to try and talk him out of it, and we ended up having a long conversation about how he couldn't see the point in fighting anymore, now that she's dead. So this was pretty surprising. The she that was being referred to was his girlfriend, Maddie. In the later dreams in the timeline, she was never there, so this sort of explained why she disappeared from the dreams. That was during the Christmas break in 2009. When school started in 2010, I met Maddie for the first time when she started at my school. She looked exactly the same, had the same laugh, same mannerisms and everything. I definitely had never met her before in real life, and yet there she was. Not just alive, but actually freaking real. Case file number 2114, written by Important Depth 9217, Creaks, Cats, and Curious Calls. The flat was in a very old building, built in the 16th century, Central Europe. It had low ceilings, a narrow staircase, and an attic that no one dared to enter. There was something eerie about it. But the flat was beautiful, overlooking the historic center of the city. Well, I digress. We adopted a cute little cat with our roommates. One of my roommates was particularly fond of her, always talking in baby voices at her. One evening, I was in the bathroom when I heard my roommate come home, keys jingling in the lock, her welcoming our cat in the baby voice. So I straightened up and went to say hi to her. However, when I came to the living room, nobody was there. Only the cat, peacefully sleeping on the couch. The flat was completely silent. I couldn't believe it. I most definitely heard her come home. Was it a hallucination or a glitch? Case file number 2115, written by Alpaca Land. Where did my flavor go? I use an iced tea toothpaste due to the fact that mint flavors cause nausea for me. I keep this toothpaste in the top vanity drawer under the spare toothbrushes. On the 24th of last month, I went to use it. It wasn't there. I looked all over the bathroom and couldn't find it. I thought my brother was screwing with me, so I just used regular toothpaste. Got nauseous, but whatever, funny joke. I kinda forgot about it on Christmas, but today, the 26th, I remember. I asked my mom if she had thrown it out. She hadn't. She went through the bathroom to check for it, but it wasn't there. I asked my brother if he was screwing with me. He was confused. I elaborated. He had no clue my toothpaste even existed. I've checked everywhere, but I can't find it. No one else was in the house at the time it vanished, and I can't think of any other explanation. Case file number 2116, written by Wait for It, The Tiny Mystery in Bright White. While showering yesterday, I heard the back of one of my earrings hit the shower floor. I picked it up and placed it on the vanity outside of the shower. Thought nothing of it again until this morning when I remembered, and immediately went to make sure the earring didn't fall off. To my surprise, all 12 of my earrings still had their backs snugly in place. Did I hallucinate it falling out? Did I put it back on and not remember? I went to the vanity, expecting to see nothing, and lo and behold, there's the earring back that fell out. I'm at a complete loss. I don't have extras of these laying around. Each earring has one back. All my other earrings with their backs were inside my jewelry case, all matched up. The shower is tiny, the corner stand-up thing, and bright white. It gets rinsed after each use, and I just did a good scrub of it a week ago. There is no way that a lost back from another time could have still been in there sight unseen. These are flat-back screw-on kinds, and no one else in my house wears ones like it. It makes my list of the top 5 unexplained things I've experienced in my life. Case file number 2117, written by Fried Cheese 23. Broken knobs and nightly sobs. I always felt like the house I grew up in was haunted. In high school, one morning, I'm leaving my room and my doorknob is hanging completely broken. My dad was always up late, so I asked if he came to my room at any point prior or my mom or sister. He said he wasn't going to say anything, but at like 2 a.m. he heard something and saw our kitchen cabinet was open and our calendar was ripped out on the floor. He thought my sis or I was messing with him. He checked the dining room and said the blinds and fake plants on the table were moving like someone just ran by. Our downstairs was a connecting circle, so he ran back the other way to catch us trying to run up the stairs. Waited a few minutes just listening in the dark and nothing. He checked mine and my sister's rooms, and we were both sleeping. Went back to watching TV and wasn't going to bother saying anything until I found my doorknob broken. I always hear things at night, so I asked my dad if my new door could have a lock. Fast forward a few nights, everyone is sleeping, and I heard something in the living room. Locked my door and tried to sleep. Around 4 a.m., I heard my doorknob moving. I look and it's rotating back and forth, slowly, a few times, and stops since it's locked. No footsteps, no doors opening or closing, no other noise. I just laid there, panicking, until I heard my mom's alarm go off. Ran to my parents' room to ask if it was one of them. Nope, they just woke up. Waited for my sister to wake up and she said it wasn't her. I locked my door every night after that. Case file number 2118, written by Dan Brochill 717. A balloon did wander, one could ponder. A couple years ago, I was at my apartment alone, as my roommate and his girlfriend were away on vacation. 3 months prior, my roommate's girlfriend gave me 5 helium balloons for my birthday, and over time I kinda just left them in the corner of the living room, so they had been in the same exact spot for at least 2 months, never moving. The morning in question, I'd woken up, gone on my computer for a bit, and then took a shower. After getting out of the shower, I went into my room to change, and next to my nightstand, behind the closet door, was one of the balloons. It startled the crap out of me as I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I was extremely confused as to how it got there. No one was home. So I take the balloon back into the living room, placing it in the middle of the room. My roommate's girlfriend also put up these streamers and decorations for New Year's 2 months prior, which were hanging from one wall to the other, about a foot or two below the ceiling. These helium balloons, being a few months old, were slowly starting to deflate, but were still able to stay 6 to 8 inches below the ceiling. So I put the balloon on the other side of one of the streamers, and sat down in my computer chair just watching it. It immediately dropped 1.5 feet from the ceiling, went underneath the streamer, and slowly bobbed up and down, and made its way towards me as I was sitting in my chair. As it is moving towards me, it starts to drop down the closer it gets to me, and eventually, it is right in front of my chair, almost at eye level with me, and it just stops there for 15 seconds before going back up as high as it can towards the ceiling now, moving towards my bedroom. It gets to the wall above the molding to my bedroom doorway, drops down, and goes back into my room and right back behind my closet door, where I found it after taking a shower. Then it just stayed there. None of the other 4 balloons ever moved once after I put them in the living room in these 2 months. Needless to say, I threw them all out after that. Told a fair amount of people that story, never could figure out an explanation. Some have said a draft, but the way it moved was not smooth at all. And the other 4 balloons never once moving makes that hard to believe for me. But yeah, I'll never know. This kinda evokes like Chucky vibes, like the balloon is possessed or controlled and like Chucky is. It's creepy for sure. Case file number 2119, written by Flaxseeds and Beads. In cold Kentucky air, toes wiggled and hope was there. A few months ago, I was hit while riding my motorcycle, only 2 months with my permit. I was on my way home, and only half a mile from my house when a car from oncoming traffic turning left across my lane. I hit them pretty much head-on at 40 miles per hour and was thrown over their vehicle before landing in the middle of the road. I can remember the feeling of the impact, just being knocked around, and the sound of my bike crashing into the car and my helmet hitting the ground. I couldn't see anything though, and I don't know if it was because I closed my eyes or because I blacked out or was already gone. I came to my senses, lying on my back in the middle of the road, just trying to figure out what was going on. It's amazing how hard it is to think after head trauma. A kind bystander came to check on me, kept me talking, got my name, told me what happened. The lady who hit me came and apologized and asked if she could do anything. I asked her to call my dad, and she said she'd go and get her phone. Never saw that B word again. One of my more distinct memories is that I felt so numb right after the hit, kinda like if you've held your hand on something that vibrates, and then you take it off and just have a vague impression and a kinda tingling. I was so scared that I couldn't feel my legs. After a few minutes of worrying, I tried to wiggle my toes and, much to my relief, I could feel them in my boots. I cried. The ambulance arrived, and the EMTs checked me out. They made sure I didn't have any neck or spine injuries before taking my gear off. It was late winter and early spring in Kentucky, and I think it was about 35 Fahrenheit that day. I was wearing 2 layers of clothing, plus my motorcycle gear on top. This is likely what saved me. I also had a backpack on, and I feel that it protected my spine, but I still felt it crack before. After going to the hospital and taking x-rays, I was released 2 hours after admittance, with pain meds and a cast on my right hand, where my thumb broke. I was told over and over again how lucky I was. The doctors were all surprised and honestly baffled I wasn't hurt worse. I was bedridden the first week and remained miserable for a while. I had back issues which required physical therapy, and was in total body pain from bruises and strained muscles. However, I didn't let it scare me off from getting back on a motorcycle. It's my passion after all. I was actually looking at new bikes while I was in the hospital. I went with my mom to some dealerships when I was about a week out from getting my cast off, and even ended up test riding one. I put down 20% that day, then paid for it and rode home right after I got my cast off. I still get extremely nervous when I pass through intersections, and something doesn't quite feel right anymore. But I'm more diligent than ever about my defensive driving. I always wear my backpack when I'm riding. It's a dry bag and is airtight, so it's kinda like having an airbag. And I was able to find the man who helped me at the accident. He is a fellow rider and a great guy. We're trying to go for a ride together. Well, my guess is, you may have died and this could be quantum immortality. Case file number 2120, written by Abort Thy Way. Mom's sudden return from nowhere near. When I was young, maybe 7, after my mom got a divorce from my dad, we lived in this creepy apartment. I think kids have a better sense about creepy crap, and I think I knew from the start that something was off about this apartment. Little backstory, and probably part of why it always creeped me out. My mom got a really good deal on it because she agreed to fix it up a little. Nothing crazy, just basically cleaning out the stuff the old tenant had left and slapping some fresh paint on the walls. The previous tenant had vanished one day. The owner said that rent time came and went, and the tenant never paid. So after calling numerous times, they finally went into the apartment and the tenant was just gone, but left all their stuff. So the way this apartment was set up, when you entered the front door, a stairway was immediately to your left, a door to the bedroom immediately to your right, and then straight ahead was a hallway with an open living room and kitchen at the end. So if you're standing in the doorway, you can see into the bedroom, up the stairs, and into the living room. Once you enter the living room, you can see the full kitchen. One day, I was playing a computer game in the downstairs bedroom and started to get hungry. I walked out of the bedroom, calling for my mom as I walked down the hallway. No answer. When I rounded the corner into the kitchen, she wasn't there. I went back down the hallway and started up the stairs. But as I was about halfway up, I felt a really creepy feeling and decided to go back down the stairs, all the while still calling for her. At the bottom of the stairs, I opened the front door and called for her with no response. Went back down the hall to open the sliding glass back door. This was an apartment complex, so we had no backyard, just a little deck, and nothing. Panicking, I went back down the hall towards the original bedroom I was in, trying to figure out what to do. I decided to grab the phone to call someone. Walked back down the hall to get it, and there stood my mother cooking dinner in the kitchen. When I asked her where she'd been, she said she'd been there the whole time. I asked why she didn't answer when I was calling for her, or if she saw me opening the back door, and she said no. It's been probably about 15 or so years and I still think about this incident periodically. The apartment was creepy as hell. Like the day we moved out, we found this hidden room type thing disguised by a vent cover that we'd never seen in the 2 years we lived there. I had recurring nightmares of the same man, and there were a few times our front door either wouldn't lock, or we'd get up in the morning to it standing open. So glad we didn't live there for longer than we had to. Case file number 2121, written by God11. Cards and clones in classroom zones. This incident happened to me and my friend in college, so a little backstory. For entering the college, we need an ID card. We can also load money on the ID card, and swipe it to mark our attendance and to purchase food from the canteen as well. So in the break time, where we can chill and eat, my friend, being my friend, took my card, as he didn't have his own at the time, and went to get something from the canteen. During all of this, the break ended and all of us went to our respective classes. I had a free lecture and went with my other friends to another class which was in the other block, just to sit and just chill. And those classes are meant for students who have a free lecture, so that they can study or complete their work, etc. So that time I was unaware that the friend also had a free lecture and was looking for me, thinking I'm in my class, and went to my original class where he thought I would be to return my ID card. After he went to my class, he got to know that I wasn't there and left my card with the teacher. Meanwhile, something or someone that looked like my friend but wasn't entered the class and came to me. He looked strange and seemed like he didn't want to talk, or to keep the whole interaction very short, he gave me my ID card and turned back. As soon as he did, I asked him to sit down, and he replied saying, "I'll be back sometime," and went away. Also, when he came in the class, he was looking down and looked at the door while entering like something was there, which was totally opposite of his personality. He is usually always smiling and is liked by everyone. After all this, after maybe about a minute or two, he again came back as if it was the first time he came in. He entered with his usual smile, shook my hand, and told me that he had been looking for me to return the card, and had dropped it off in my class with the teacher, to which I told him that he had just given it to me, which I showed him. We both have spoken over it multiple times. It's not possible that I went to my class and came back before he came to the other block, because there's only one way to walk between those blocks. and it's not possible for any human to go to the other block to get the card and return back and sit in the class while my friend was coming from the original class to the other block at the same time. Even the teacher didn't tell me anything once I returned to my class after the lecture ended. This friend has been with me since more than 5 years, and I know him in and out, and I just know when he's lying. I remember his face when I told him all of this. I'm sure that whatever he's saying is true, and even whenever I think of this, it gives me some kind of a weird feeling as if something that was him but wasn't, was present there for whatever unknown reason. Case file number 2122, written by Salty Soup 7, Spice Shakers and Papermakers. We were out of smoked paprika, so I bought 2 new spice shakers with it. My fiancée was having trouble opening them. There's a little paper wall in between, so she asked for help. I opened it and removed the paper thing so she could cook lunch with it. A few hours later, I was making dinner. I opened our spice cabinet and saw the 2 shakers. One was emptier than the other, so I used that one. However, when I tried to season it, it didn't work. I examined it and saw that it was sealed by this paper thing. My first thought was to try the other one, but to my surprise, that one was also sealed. I asked my girlfriend to just make sure where she had put the one I had opened for her. She told me the spot, and, of course, it had to be one of the 2. I mean, one was even emptier. I called my girlfriend over and showed her the shakers. She was totally confused. Since she had never played pranks on me before and is a pretty bad liar, I'm 100% sure it wasn't a joke. Plus, those paper things are always stuck on pretty firmly, and we don't have any glue in the house. Case file number 2123, written by TastyFig67. A Dragonfly, Australia, and Mom's Love. I lost a very important necklace on vacation that my boyfriend bought me last year. It was a gold dragonfly pendant, which meant a lot to me because my mom, who passed in 2016, loved dragonflies. He searched everywhere for the perfect one because he knows I like dainty, smaller jewelry. And it was made in Australia, so on top of the price he paid for the gold handmade item, shopping was hell, which made me feel awful when I realized it didn't make it back home. I searched everywhere and it didn't show up. About a month ago, we moved, and while unpacking, recently, we found it. In a bag his mom recently gave us, full of his clothes he had left at her place. A lot of people would have assumed it got misplaced and came home in the wrong bag or something. But I emptied every single crevice of each bag, suitcase, makeup bag, lunch boxes, like literally everything we own, and didn't come up. On top of that, I've never worn the necklace to his mom's, so the likelihood of her finding it and giving it back is so-so. We have it in our safe now, and I'm now only wearing it on special occasions, just to be safe. Case file number 2124, written by Dandy Cotton Candy. From Beyond, a Drawing Dawned. My grandparents lived in South Dakota for many decades, and worked with the local reservations for various things, including fostering native children. When my grandmother died, they gifted her a star quilt that we buried with her. From what my mom told me, star quilts have a lot of meaning with the Lakota Sioux tribes, and receiving one is a huge honor, especially if you're white. Years later, my mom and I were sitting in our kitchen eating lunch when we heard a crash from the living room, and our cat ran up the stairs at light speed. My mom got up to see what he knocked over and said, "What is this?" I went over to see, and laying face down on the floor in front of our front door was a blue picture frame I didn't recognize. My mom picked it up, and on the other side was a beautiful drawing of a native woman quilting a star quilt. No one in our family had seen this drawing before. Even my grandpa didn't recognize it. On top of that, we have no idea how it got into our house. We had a broken door handle at the time, so if anyone not familiar with how it worked tried to open the door, they would have failed, and if anyone who did not know how it worked opened the door, they would have made a lot of noise. But neither of us heard anything before the crash in the living room, Plus, no one we knew was nearby. Everyone was either at work or at their own house at the time. My mom believes her mom somehow gave it to us from the afterlife. I have no idea how it got to us, but I still get chills thinking about it. The drawing is hanging in my mom's house to this day, and is one of the only things left of my grandmother's, since most of her paintings and drawings were destroyed by bedbugs thanks to my druggy uncle. Maybe she gave it to us to save it from him. Case file number 2125, written by Dark Park 7, The Sunrise Confusion and Time's Transition. I will never understand this for as long as I live. In high school, I liked to wake up early in the mornings so I'd have time to eat breakfast, watch TV, maybe do some last-minute homework, and relax before I'd begin my day. I always set my alarm at 6 a.m., so that morning, as usual, my phone alarm went off. I grabbed my phone to turn it off. I distinctly remember reading a text message from a friend, who was an early riser like me, asking me if I wanted to grab fried rice later that night with the rest of our friends. He sent this at 5:39 a.m. It was still September, so the sun was always up at this hour. I got up out of bed and immediately hopped into the shower. When I got out, I headed down to the kitchen to brew coffee and make some breakfast. While I was waiting on the coffee pot to heat up, I ran back to my room to grab my phone. When I looked down at my phone, I just about croaked. The time on the phone read 3:30 a.m. To make matters worse, I looked outside and the sun wasn't even up yet. What's even weirder was I never even received that text from my friend. I just sat there, bewildered and frustrated, running through the chain of events from that morning over and over again. I eventually made my way back to the kitchen, seeing that I was wide awake now. I didn't need coffee anymore. Stayed up the rest of the morning, not even trying to attempt to sleep again. Later that morning, something even stranger happened. At 5:39 a.m., I received that text message from my friend. I spent a lot of time over the years trying to decipher the events from that morning. All I know is that somehow I woke up in the future and my shower took me back in time. Case file number 2126, written by All About Charlemagne. Boots Adieu, not in their milieu. One day, I was driving with my son, 3, and daughter, infant. Son was in a car seat, all the way in the back of my van. Daughter was in the middle. I know my son had boots on, because there was snow on the ground, so I tried to put his shoes on, and he screamed bloody murder until he got boots. We went directly to the van. When we got to our destination, a grocery store less than 10 minutes away, he no longer had boots on. Now keep in mind, the windows in the back of my van don't open at all. Neither do the windows in the middle. Only the ones in the front, and since it was winter, I definitely didn't open those. After a quick search in the parking lot with no results, we obviously had to go back home because he couldn't walk around the store in socks. When we got back home, I searched the car properly. After about 20 minutes, it wasn't even about managing to get to the grocery store. It was about the principle of the thing. I was going to find those goddamn boots. I removed car seats and entire seats from the van. I searched every possible space I could access, let alone my strapped-in 3-year-old. I even searched everywhere in between the spot I put his boots on and the car. Never found those goddamn freaking boots. And boots are made for walking, huh? Case file number 2127, written by Delvin Thowles, A Voice of Gold, and an Arrow Foretold. In high school, I did archery, and one day at shooting practice, one of the new kids shot a bullseye exactly dead center. Now this isn't that remarkable. You fire enough arrows, sooner or later, one of them will be a bullseye. But everyone was being nice and congratulating him. Suddenly, a voice in my head, which sounded like me, but didn't really feel like me, said, "Yeah, but Lynn's about to do the same thing." And I could see in my mind's eye, Lynn firing an arrow, it flying through the air, and hitting a dead-centered bullseye. Then maybe 3 or 4 seconds later, I watch as Lynn fires an arrow and it flies in exactly the trajectory I'd seen in my head, and lands with a thwack, bullseye. Everyone is over congratulating Lynn now. She was new too. And I'm standing off to the side wondering what the hell just happened. It happened one more time a month or 2 later too. I saw something happen in my head exactly as it did a few seconds later. I've forgotten the details of the second time though, and it's never happened since. Case file number 2128, written by Steve's by Hair, Cows, Lewis, and Times Game. So this happened about 10 years ago, when my friends and I were all 12. Me and another friend called Amy went to hang out at another friend, Lewis's house. After hanging out in his room for a while, we decided to go outside and to the farm that Lewis lived nearby. When we went downstairs, Lewis's mom was drying his little sister's hair before she went to bed, and the clock was at 7:45 p.m. Lewis's little sister always goes to bed at 8 p.m., and his mom watches her 8 p.m. show. So we left, but decided to go to the shop to buy juice first, which is 20 minutes there and back. Then we went to the farm and hung out in our den, chatted a long time, and watched the cows. Me and Lewis kept getting random shivers down the spine every now and then, so we decided to go home. When we walked up the farm road, we saw a horse at one of the pens. This confused us, as this farm only had cows. When we got to the pen, it was no longer there, but you could still hear it. We decided to walk the longer way home as we felt weirded out. This took us by a road. It was getting pretty late, and we'd been out for a while, so we flagged down the car to ask if they had the time. A man stopped and told us the time, 9:20 p.m. Another 10 minutes till we got back to Lewis's house, checking time on parking meters, all saying 9:20 onwards. When we get into the house, Lewis's mom is drying his little sister's hair, watching the program that she was watching when we left. The time on the clock and on the TV said 7:50. Lewis's mom asked us where we had been, as she hadn't seen us leave, and we had to walk by her to get out of the house. Amy and I left almost immediately, and all the parking meters and time on our ticket stubs said 8 p.m. and onwards. To this day, we've never been able to explain it. How we somehow had an extra hour, more even, than everyone else, and it's happened a few times since. This reminds me of that old movie, Clock Stoppers. You ever see that? I might be too old. Case file number 2129, written by Lou at Work. Girls just want to have fun. When I was younger, I had a fantastic relationship with my paternal grandfather. From as early as I can remember to being 12 or 13, I would go to my grandparents' house every Friday, or after nursery and school or whatever, and he would always drive me home about 10 minutes to my parents. I loved the drives home. We'd often take longer routes, long cuts, to spend more time in the car. For the longest time, he always had this one CD in the car. If I recall, it was Now That's What I Call Music, or maybe a similar brand. One song that stood out was Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. We loved that song so much. Always had it playing once or twice on the drive home. And despite me being a preteen boy and he an old Yorkshire man, it became our favorite song. Fast forward a few years, I'm 13 or 14 and on holiday abroad with my parents. We spent pretty much the entire time sat by the pool at the hotel, which played the same music. This hotel had one playlist of songs, maybe 20 to 25 tracks long. We could always predict what the next song would be. It became a bit of a joke between the family that the music was so terrible. Whilst we're away, Granddad was taken into hospital. He'd not been a well man for as long as I can remember, and this would be the last time he went to the hospital. When things got bad, my dad got the phone call to come home and see him before he passed. And he does just that. I stayed at the hotel for the rest of the holiday with my sister and mother, who shielded us from, well, what's going on, but we still knew. There was a specific phone call that my dad made to my mom via the local hotel reception that I identified as being the one straight after my grandfather passed. I was sitting on a bench with my sister as my mother spoke. Then the next song that played was, of course, Girls Just Wanna Have Fun. Now, keep in mind, this was not part of the repeating playlist or ever being heard play in the last 7 days, but there it was. After it ended, the music went back to the crappy playlist. Never really shared this story before. It's what led me to fully believe the universe is interactive and fluid, and nothing is really real how we think it is. The more I think about it, the stranger it gets. That song also has a habit of creeping up at strange times. This one's very nice, very sweet in a somber way. Now time for the dad jokes of the day. Joke number 1. What did Yoda say when he saw himself in 4K? HDMI. Just reverse it. It's great. Joke number 2. How many potatoes does it take to kill an Irishman? None. God, this one's dark. I don't know if it's too soon. Joke number 3. I got a new iPhone from my girlfriend. All things considered, it was a pretty good trade. Joke number 4. What do you call a female mannequin? A mammakin. Joke number 5. Waitress noticed my kid didn't finish her meal and asked her, "Want a box for that?" I said, "No, ma'am, but she'll wrestle you for it." Wouldn't that be fun if you could pay for food by just fighting the waitress? That'd be entertaining. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.